Reporting to the media this week at Post Executive Council Media Briefing is the Chief Secretary, Orville London.
The first has to be the update on the Sargassum seaweed situation. Just to remind you that the seaweed started coming into Speyside on the 31st of July, and it will have impacted the residents, the hotels, the restaurants, the fishermen, the recreational users of the beach, and of course, you know the kind of impact that it had on the Speyside environment. We began the cleanup on the 2nd of August, and the cleanup operation would have been concluded on the 18th of August. But quite interestingly, when it was concluded on the 18th of August, there was a significant quantity of seaweed deposited on the night of the 18th, and therefore the cleanup operations resumed on the 19th and concluded on the 22nd of August. The situation has not abated. In fact, seaweed continues to come into Speyside on a daily basis, but the situation is not as unmanageable and as untenable as it was prior to that. So that our intention is to expand the CPEP and URP gangs so that they clean on a daily basis to make sure that it does not become as overwhelming as it was. Based on the information that I have, a total of 1,983 truckloads, or approximately 12,000 cubic yards of seaweed was removed from Speyside. And of course, this does not count the seaweed that was removed from the Blue Waters Inn and from the Magdalena and other areas, so that it was quite an achievement. I want to take the opportunity to commend the Division of Agriculture, Marine Affairs, Marketing and Environment, and especially Mr. Linford Beckles, who would have coordinated the entire activity. I also want to really congratulate the CPEP and URP workers, and special commendation to the Speyside villagers and those individuals, even from outside the community, who would have volunteered and worked towards trying to alleviate the situation. I want to also indicate that there was some indiscriminate disposal of seaweed by some of the truckers along the Windward Main Road, and of course they were penalized, and that situation is to be rectified and the material removed to Louis D'Or. And there's also a visible mountain of seaweed at the Lao Estate. This is supposed to be removed within the next 2 weeks and deposited on the Louis D'Or Estate for composting. Now, bearing in mind that this is a phenomenon which is likely to be repeated on an annual basis, or maybe on a regular basis, the Tobago House of Assembly has in fact taken the decision that they are going to be linking with various agencies and various countries in an effort to find the best way to treat with the situation. It is not a Tobago problem only, it's not a Trinidad and Tobago problem, not even a regional problem only. And therefore there are a number of entities, and I think that the idea of having this treated as a regional issue, that has gained currency throughout many of the countries, and we are treated with it. I wish to state, however, that we can consider ourselves to be quite fortunate to a certain extent, because many of our beaches have been unaffected or relatively unaffected, and therefore the damage to the tourism sector and the image of Tobago, I don't think that damage is significant, and I don't think that the damage is something that is going to be permanent. I haven't got the total figure, but my last discussion with the Office of the Chief Administrator indicated that to date we would have expended or committed somewhere in the vicinity of $4 million. What the final figure is, I do not know, but as I said earlier, we were committed to bringing relief to the people of Speyside and environs, to the business community, and of course with the assistance of all the agencies, including the truckers, many of whom would have risked their equipment operating in fairly harsh conditions. So that I think one positive thing that came out of this is what can be achieved when there's collaboration among the assembly, among the with the private sector, with the communities, etc., to treat with a common problem. So that I think there were some positives coming out of this. The second issue that I wanted to raise has to do with the water situation. As you know, I have been quite critical of WASA and its lack of preparation with respect to this situation, and I think you know that all the statements that I made are statements that can be substantiated. However, I did get in touch with the people at WASA today to get an update as to what the present situation is. I was informed that in an effort to bring more water into the system, they have actually activated 2 wells, the recently dug well at Claude Noel Highway and a well at Arna's Vale. These wells, the water from these wells, according to my information, is now into the system. But the levels at the Hillsborough Dam, is still very low, and it means that the water conservation request is repeated or renewed, and of course there is scheduling and there is water trucking and so on. So that until such time as the weather changes, I do not see any hope of the situation improving significantly. I did get a commitment with respect to the Hillsborough Dam. My information again is that another tender has gone out. I hope that when this tender is approved, that the funding is made available so that the silting of the Hillsborough Dam can take place within the next fiscal or the next calendar year, because it is only with the coming on stream of the Hillsborough Dam that we're going to have any degree of predictability with respect to the water situation, especially when we have the kind of extended and intense dry season as we've had in 2015. I want to just explain what the situation is with respect to street lighting. You know, in my interaction with people throughout Tobago, and of course, based on the information coming through from many of the representatives, the issue of street lighting in some areas has become, you know, something of concern. And it's at 2 levels: areas where there's no street lighting at all, and areas where there is street lighting, but the maintenance is not up to par. And I just want to explain how the system works. The Tobago House of Assembly is not responsible for the actual installation of or repair of lights. That is done by TNTech. The initial process was one where we would have identified what the challenge was, where the work is to be done, and then this was costed by TNTech, and we would then pay the money, and then TNTech would have the work done. TNTech also has its challenges in that because TNTech contracts out that work. And in fact, as I speak, there is $1.8 million which has been paid by the Tobago House of Assembly to TNTech for work to be done on street lights throughout Tobago. The information coming from the Division of Infrastructure and Public Utilities is that they are attempting to start scheduling, or they are scheduling the works to start towards the end of this month. And we are hopeful, I can't even say optimistic, we are hopeful that they would also get the contractors on stream to have this work done as soon as possible. With respect to the installation, there's another $1 million worth of work which the Tobago House of Assembly has requested TNTech would have changed the process whereby estimates are made and then we pay. So we have not paid for that yet, but the work is valued at about $1 million. So after that work is estimated, we will pay, and again, we hopefully will get quick response. With respect to repairs, I had a meeting with TNTech, the new manager, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I must say about the management of TNTech in Tobago is that they have always been quite collaborative, and this new manager doesn't seem any different. But of course, you don't just want collaboration, you want action. And but he has indicated that materials should be available so that TNTech can beef up or ramp up its maintenance of the lights. So I am hoping that there will be an improvement in both aspects, both the installation of the new lights and the maintenance of the lights. There should be some relief to the people in Northeast Tobago because TNTech is ready to do street lighting. I think it is from Runnymede to either Palatine or Bloody Bay in 2 phases. That has been costed, and the ball is in our court. And I think the administration and the division has been approached for the funding. And once the funding is made available, TNTech has given the commitment that it was going to continue with that job. And finally, the Forum on the Tobago Sport Policy, that is on tomorrow and Friday. And it's an opportunity for the stakeholders to meet and to have their say on the draft sports policy for Tobago. Among the issues that will be discussed is, of course, the whole question of sport tourism, how sport can be developed in Tobago, community involvement, maintenance of facilities, and of course, the linkage between a Tobago sports policy and the national sports policy, because although the Tobago sport policy will obviously have to be one that almost stands on its own, there will have to be that level of linkage. One of the issues that I hope will be discussed, because the Tobago House of Assembly and I have a view on that, is the management of the Dwight York Stadium. As you are aware, we have had, I would consider it a disconnect with the central government with respect to the maintenance of the Dwight York Stadium. 3 years ago, we would have had discussions with them on bringing the stadium up to international standard. And there were 2 aspects to it. One was the state of the track, which obviously had been laid quite some years ago and needed to be, well, not just resurfaced, but to be relaid. And then, of course, the state of the pavilion itself, the building. We made the commitment when they spoke about limited funding, recognizing the importance of this facility to us in Tobago. We took the commitment, although we did not have specific funding for it, to utilize or to via funding so that we could raise the over $10 million to put down what many consider to be one of the finest tracks in the region. And that was done. However, to date, nothing has really happened from the Ministry of Sport or the sport company. In fact, one of the major challenges we have is the question of lighting. And what to me is quite disheartening is that the lighting, even though they had to do it over, is not going to cost more than $3 million. And for a period of 3 years, nothing is done. Nothing has been done to deal with that. There is some significant work to be done on the pavilion itself, but we did have some experts come in, and they have confirmed that the structural integrity of the stadium has not been compromised. So even if you have a situation where aesthetically there must be improvement, activities could have gone on at the stadium if the central government had carried out, or if the Ministry of Sport had carried out its responsibility. So my position is, and I think that is supported by the Secretary and the Assistant Secretary at the Division of Education, Youth Affairs and Sport, is that the Ministry of Sport should carry out its responsibility to upgrade the facility so that we have a facility that is, can in fact stand side by side with any facility in the region, and then hand over the management of the facility to the Tobago House of Assembly. I think it would be unfair to hand it over to us in that state, and I think that the responsibility should be that of the Ministry of Sport to upgrade it and then to hand it over. So I expect that that will be one of the issues, and I'm hoping that there'll be a strong recommendation coming to support us with respect to that. I think you're all aware of what we would have achieved, Tobago would have achieved, I should say, in athletics and in various sporting activities over the years. And I think that we have to give our young people every opportunity. I'd be particularly interested in the discussions coming out of sport tourism. I think we ideally suited in Tobago to really be more aggressive in our sport tourism thrust. And we'll be very happy to hear, very eager to hear not just the criticism, but the comments and the recommendations of interested parties in this particular aspect. I think sport had a very critical role to play in the development of Tobago, and I'm hopeful that we're going to treat with that. And the final point that I want to make is related to that. And it is that we as Tobagonians have got to understand that Tobago could become even more important with respect to the national economy. We're all aware of the very troubling decline in oil prices in recent months, the lowest that it has been for over 8 years. And of course, it means that with gas and oil prices, we say that we are a gas economy, but the gas prices have in fact declined significantly. I think they're still slightly above the budgeted price, but it is troubling. And oil has now fallen below the budgeted price. But the question of foreign exchange and the question of predictability in getting foreign exchange and having the economy operating at a reasonable level, the role of tourism is going to become even more important as the energy sector continues to experience challenges. And it means that in those circumstances, we've got to become more varied, we've got to become more innovative, we've got to become more diversified, and we've got to become more competitive. So whether we're dealing with sport, whether we're dealing with eco, whether we're dealing with adventure, whatever, we in Tobago have got to understand it cannot be business as usual. As the global economy declines, we're going to have more competition. Even developed countries are going to recognize the potential of improving their tourism or intensifying their tourism trust, and therefore we have got to be prepared. So I just wanted to put that out there as something that all of us in Tobago have to look at.
I know that there would have been a committee tasked with identifying suitable locations for the CNG plant, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that they were supposed to have a report or something, suggestions compiled by the 18th, last Tuesday. So I wanted to find out if there's any follow-up on that, and also a status on the bus purchases.
With respect to the CNG plant, we have not got the definite proposals as to the sites, because basically their mandate was to recommend 3 sites in order of priority. They have not come to any conclusion on that, because they obviously will have to do a significant amount of interrogation of people, and also investigation, and even some research. Because what is happening is that it's not just the plant that you got, not the plant, sorry, the CNG station, but you also have to have the line run from the processing plant at Cove to wherever that is. There's a restriction, and that's one of the reasons why the plant cannot be more than, I think, 2 miles, in a 2-mile radius, or 2-mile distance, sorry, from the processing plant, because then the cost becomes astronomical. In addition to which, I have been informed that there must be a kind of buffer where the line passes, a safety buffer, so that they're not just looking at the location, which is just maybe about a half acre, an acre or so. They also got to work all of that. So it's going to take a little bit more than the week that we originally envisaged for them to determine not only the suitable site, but also a suitable pathway, because we now have to link that with other development that we have planned, because you don't want to have the pipeline pass there and then you want to put on whether it's houses or another structure or something. So that is going to take a little bit more time. By the time I come back, I should be in a position to either tell you what they have done or be in a position to tell you, whether what kind of timeline, the new timeline they're looking at. But I think the 1-week timeline might have been a little ambitious. With respect to the buses, in fact, one of the representatives from Brazil was here to inquire about where we are with respect to that. There is a financial issue having to do with the way in which the bus drivers, the prospective maxi-taxi drivers from the private sector are going to be involved in the process. And maybe I should share with you, because it's no rocket science. We have made a commitment to order 30 buses, some of which will remain under the jurisdiction of the Tobago House of Assembly, and some of which are supposed to be given to the private sector to utilize. And I'll come back to why that is so critical for us. The challenge is, however, that we do not want to bring 30 buses, park them up, and then wait for people to come and buy them. I mean, you will end up criticizing us if 6 months after we buy the buses, they parked up somewhere in infrastructure. So they're now trying to work out, or they have been, I shouldn't say they know, they have been trying to work out, how can you get a certain degree of predictability that when the buses come as the last time around, that almost immediately they are handed over. The Brazilians are eager to start, and because they also have a challenge in that because they produce left-handed buses, they now have to, make adjustments in their manufacturing line in order to facilitate us. So they're also willing to do that. I have not spoken to the Secretary of Finance and the Secretary of Infrastructure before I came to know whether they have come to some agreement between them and the Maxi Taxi fraternity. But we have a commitment to these buses, and I'll tell you there's some self-interest involved. In recent times, we have become very successful in attracting cruise ship liners to Tobago. And not only more liners, but larger liners. And we run the risk of losing out on that if we cannot provide adequate transportation. Because we now have liners coming in here, instead of averaging 1,500 passengers, we have liners coming in here with 2,500 passengers. And one of the issues with cruise ship tourism is that when people land on an island, they want to spend as little time as possible on the port, because they're just here for a couple hours. So you need to have a system whereby these people you get them out and get them back, get them out of the port in a matter of minutes rather than hours. So it is to our advantage to make sure that we have some kind of predictable system. So there is a timeline. It's getting tighter and tighter, and I hope we can make it. If we don't, we'll have to look for alternative measures, because we're running the risk of losing out on the kind of interest and excitement that has been generated in the cruise ship industry with respect to coming to Tobago. So the answer to your question is that as I sit here, I am not certain where the negotiation is, but I know the Secretary of Infrastructure and the Secretary of Finance have been speaking. They have also been speaking with the representatives of the Maxi Taxi Association, that a representative from the Brazilian company was here, but I really don't know where the discussions are. I am hoping, from my perspective, that they are able to bring closure to this sooner rather than later, because I'm aware of the importance of us having an adequate and predictable transportation for the start of the cruise ship season.
The PTSC embarked yesterday on the bus rehabilitation program. I know that you would have expressed interest previously in meeting with the administration of the PTSC at some level to discuss the issue of reliability with the PTSC fleet in Tobago. I'm inquiring as to if these efforts have come into any fruition. Have you met with them? Has there been any discussion?
In fact, when we had the meeting to discuss the NGC buses, the manager of the PTSC in Tobago, Mr. Cook, was at the meeting, and I did have the opportunity to have a sidebar with him. And he indicated, and that he is the one who confirmed that whereas they needed 25 to 30 buses, they only had 8. And he did indicate that they will bring in some engines to attempt to rehabilitate some of the buses which they had parked up there for quite some time. That will obviously improve the situation, but it won't resolve the problem. Improving a bad situation is not difficult, because anything you do is going to be considered better or less bad than it was. I do not know, I'm no expert. I do not know about the reliability of the buses after being retrofitted in this way. And basically the numbers to me did not add up, because I think the numbers that he told me was 11. I don't know if that has been increased, but I think it was somewhere about 11, if I trust my memory. That is still going to bring the bus situation in Tobago, make it much less likely to be able to deal with the problem. Because if I refer back to the situation with the cruise ship tourism, we used to be able at one point in time to get support from the PTSC public transportation when the cruise ships come in. That doesn't happen anymore. But I think the most important thing to me is how this affects the quality of life of the people of Tobago. A public transportation system is only relevant if it provides predictability. In other words, if I have a child going to school, I must know at 7:30 in the morning, my child can stand there or go to some point and be taken to school. You have the school transport, and that is why the school bus system is so predictable. I mean, so reliable, because that happens. But if I, however, send my child with the school bus, I must also be in a position where I must stand at that corner or another corner, and a public transportation bus comes. That is not happening. It is that reliability and predictability we're looking for. That will prevent a lot of people from buying cars, or even though they buy them, from using them. One of the reasons why we have so many cars on the road in Tobago at any one time is that there is no reliable public transportation system. And people know if you got to get to work on time, you either have to flag down a taxi or you have to drive yourself. And therefore that is one of the reasons why I am so, distressed that we cannot do what is necessary to get a proper public transportation system. And it's not going to cost $100 million. All you need to do is to have a commitment to determine what is a reasonable number of buses for Tobago. Let us purchase the buses, let us get them into the system, and let us operate. Because you see, you got to be able to prioritize as to what is most critical. And I'm saying public transportation in Tobago is definitely among the most critical areas. If the Tobago House of Assembly, and that's why the Tobago House of Assembly, despite its straitened financial circumstances, has taken the decision that it has to make this a priority. And I'm saying if the central government had a similar mindset, we would not have been in the position that we are in at this point in time.
Thank you for tuning in to another Post-Executive Council media briefing for the week ending August 29th, 2015.